Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Homes and Safe Communities Scrutiny Committee. It is 6 o'clock and the 10th of January 2024. May I remind everyone present that the meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded via the internet, and this recording archived for future viewing. Could all participants please mute themselves when not speaking in order to avoid any background noise or feedback when other participants are speaking? If a participant wishes to speak, can they please raise their hand in person if sat in the chamber, or use the remote raise hand function if a participant raises their hand via the remote function and is not subsequently invited to speak by the chair? Please could they turn their camera on to indicate or place a message in the chat function. When invited to address by the chair, please could all participants ensure that their microphone and camera is on to ensure that they can be seen and heard when actively participating. If this is not possible for any reason, please bring this to the attention of the chair and/or Democratic Services Officer as soon as possible. Please ensure that all debate is raised verbally and not via the chat function for the sake of the recording. The chat function may be used to highlight any technical issues and/or to grab the attention of the chair or Democratic Services Officer. If any participant has difficulty hearing or being heard when they are addressing the committee, then they should let the chair or Democratic Officer know. Okay, so we will continue with the first meeting of 2024. I hope you all had a good Christmas and a Happy New Year to you all. Agenda item 1 is apologies for absence. Do we have any?
We've currently got one, Chair, and that's from Councillor Haynes.
Okay, thank you. Any other apologies? Nope. Okay, so agenda item 2 is the minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of December 2023. Are we happy with the minutes? Councillor Hennessy?
Yeah, happy with the minutes.
Councillor Campbell? Councillor Campbell?
There's just an adjustment in the minutes that I can't flick into the minutes at the moment because every time I flick out of this screen, it's actually booting me out of the meeting.
Okay.
But I did actually raise in the meeting that there was a land purchase by the council. It was corrected by the one of the officers to be a land sale, but it's not exactly. It is actually a land purchase by the council, so that does actually need to be corrected in the minutes.
Okay.
Right, I was about to raise that anyway, so thank you very much, Councillor Campbell, for raising it. So what we would do, Chair, as long as committee are happy to approve the minutes subject for that amendment to be made.
I'm happy with that. Can I have a seconder? Yeah. Councillor Hennessy.
Come on, Councillor.
Yeah, I'm happy to approve that.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item 3 is declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest? Councillor Aviat.
Yes, I'd like to declare an interest in agenda item 5, please, as a tenant of the council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Exactly the same thing. Agenda item 5, I'm a tenant of the council.
Okay, Councillor Payne.
Hiya. Can I declare on item 5, please, which is point 2.32. I have dispensation to talk on issues of housing and homelessness, particularly in relation to this item 2.32 as it relates to one of the Flamai projects. That's on page 15. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other declarations of interest? I don't see any more hands. Okay, thank you. Agenda item 4 is the draft of Vale Glamorgan Council Annual Delivery Plan 2024 to 2025. This went to Cabinet on the 30th of November 2023. And I believe Miles and Mike will be taking this. If you'd like to come in, Miles.
Certainly, thank you. Yes, Chair. As you said, this is a reference from Cabinet, so I'll take you through the detail. There's a lot of information there. So, a way of background, and as detailed in paragraph 1.2 of the report, the annual delivery plan is aligned to the Council's 4 wellbeing objectives, and these are contained in the Corporate Plan 2020-25. I'll just tell you what they are, just to refresh your memories. So the 4 objectives are to work and for our communities, to support learning, employment and sustainable economic growth, to support people at home and in their community, and to respect, enhance and enjoy our environment. So this is the 5th and final annual delivery plan of the Council's Corporate Plan 2020-2025. This is our last year of the plan, essentially. And this plan is called Working Together for a Brighter Future. So the plan details the proposed actions for 24-25 aimed at delivering the objectives I've just mentioned and associated commitments under those objectives within the corporate plan. The report sets out how the draft annual delivery plan, which I'll refer to occasionally as ADP, has been developed, the proposed consultation taken to date and the timetable for the plan. And corporate plan wellbeing objectives and associated commitments for the 24-25 period are outlined within the annual delivery plan, and they will also be reflected in service plans. And a service plan essentially is an individual plan for each service, which shows their contribution to the annual delivery plan and corporate plan. This committee will see the service plans later in the new year with the proposed service target improvements within the plans for 23-24 and 24-25. So paragraph 5.5 and 5.6 of the report explains the legislation associated with the Council's requirements to produce an annual delivery plan. I won't take members through that, but essentially we are duty bound to provide this annual delivery plan by various pieces of legislation. In terms of the draft plan as it stands, it's attached at Appendix A to the report, and there continues to be a particular emphasis on 3 critical challenges which many actions in the plan will contribute to. In 24-25, we believe that the following critical challenges will be key, and there'll be a focus for service areas across the Council and for our many partners. So just to recap on the critical challenges, number 1, organisational resilience. This regards our finances, people and assets. So ensuring that we can continue to adapt in the face of adversity and provide our services despite the financial pressures and workforce challenges that we and many of our partners and other organisations face. So I will say, and members will recognise this, that this is an extremely challenging time financially for everybody, and councils are no different. I'm in my 42nd year of this council, and it's probably one of the most difficult financial periods coming over the next few years. So lots for us to do as officers to try and continue to provide the services that our residents need. Item 2, cost of living crisis. It's imperative that we support our residents, local organisations and business in the face of rising costs, in particular around energy, food and housing, and climate and nature emergencies. So responding to the climate and nature emergencies and delivering the commitments in our climate challenge. So they are the critical challenges, and these are outlined within the report. So paragraph 2.6 of the report explains how the plan was developed. So essentially the first step in developing the final draft of this ADP as it stands now was through discussions with Cabinet members and the strategic leadership team. And in drafting the final version of the plan, we will also consider the following: the Council's performance and expected progress in delivering actions in the ADP for this year, 23-24, annual self-assessment report, corporate risk register, our statutory duties, the likely availability of resources, findings from the work of our regulators, views of residents and partners, and the Public Service Board wellbeing plan. So lots of factors involved in the development of the document. 2.7 of the report details the consultation timetable. So we started on the 30th of November with the Cabinet approving the draft ADP, and we conclude on the 4th of March when the Council considers the final draft of the ADP. And in April, we deliver it for next year. So this meeting and other meetings of scrutiny are part of that consultation process. So we are seeking this committee's comments on the document as it stands this evening. Work has also been undertaken with youth services to engage with young people, which we also consider as extremely important. And we're also including town and community councils, equality consultative forum, and schools and third sector within this consultation process. So we're trying to get as wide a views as possible. So what I'll do now, Chair, I'll just take you through some of the plan content, just to give you a bit of a heads up on some of the actions that are proposed within the plan. So we're starting at page 11 of Appendix A, under each corporate plan objective, and I'll highlight a few of these, the most relevant to this particular committee. So objective 1 is to work with and for our communities, and there are 13 actions under this particular heading. So I'll give you a few of those actions now. So one is to deliver our public participation strategy, including the use of community mapping to improve how we involve, communicate and consult with people to ensure citizens have the opportunity to have their voices heard. Very important for us as a council. I'm sure you'll all appreciate that. Another is to progress place-making plans in Barry, Carwich, Lantern Major and Penarth, putting the future needs of town centres and communities at the heart of decision-making and maximising the impact of a range of funding streams. And the last one I'll highlight under this particular objective heading is to engage with and strengthen our relationships with the third sector, social enterprise and town and community councils to help shape and deliver local services. One thing that will be extremely important in light of our budget challenges is the support that the third sector, social enterprises and town and community councils can provide to us in delivering services to our residents. Objective 2, same process. I'll take you through a few of the headline actions. 11 actions under this particular heading, and these start on page 13 of Appendix A. So work with schools and other partners to ensure schools are effectively supported to maximise outcomes for all learners. Extremely important. Work with our schools and partners and explore new service delivery models to address budgetary challenges and the increasing demands and complexity of children and young people's social, emotional and mental well-being at primary and secondary levels. And work with a range of partners to support employment and the development of skills for the future and improve links between schools, local colleges and business. Moving to objective 3. Now, all objectives are relevant to this committee, but objective 3 is probably one that carries the most relevance. So just to remind members, objective 3 is to support people at home and in their community. There are 21 actions against this particular objective. And as I say, many have relevance to this committee. And these are on page 15 of Appendix A. So I'll just take you through a few of these. So develop and support initiatives in response to the cost of living crisis and the associated issues of housing, energy costs, food poverty, period poverty, debt, and access to benefits, employment and training. Work with partners to promote and enhance community safety. And I know you've got a community safety report on the agenda this evening. And safeguarding with a specific focus on tackling antisocial behaviour in our towns and implementing the regional violence against women and domestic abuse and sexual violence strategy. Working collaboratively across the public and private sector to improve the number of households successfully prevented from becoming homeless and deliver effective interventions for young people at risk of being homeless. And accelerate the council house building programme through the Regional Development Partnership, delivering 73 new homes for a number of mixed tenure schemes across the Vale, including an increase of new accessible adapted homes. And one of the things that and I'm extremely proud of, and I know Mike is, and the team, and the cabinet member, is the house building programme over the last few years in the Vale of Glamorgan. So lastly, objective 4, which is to respect and enhance and enjoy the local environment. There's 17 actions under this heading on page 18 of Appendix A. I'll just highlight a few of those for you. So implement Project Zero, our climate change challenge plan, and work with the community and other stakeholders to reduce carbon emissions, focus and work on procurement, energy use, housing, transport, land and food, ensuring that our response to the climate and nature emergencies is integral to all decisions. Work with our partners to respond to the nature emergency, including developing and implementing a new green infrastructure strategy, a tree management strategy, encouraging biodiversity enhancements in all developments, and delivery of the biodiversity forward plan. and progress the review of the Council's local delivery plan with a focus on the assessment of candidate sites' preferred strategy and preparation of a deposit plan of the replacement plan following consultation and including consideration of the findings of an expert report on the viability of requiring all new dwellings to be zero carbon. So it's just a whistle-stop tour, Chair, through some of the actions within the document in Appendix A. So we're seeking feedback from the committee regarding the draft plan. As I've explained the context, there are three characteristics that we've written the plan to support. One of them is extremely challenging financial situation for our residents. So hopefully the actions are sufficiently aspirational and realistic, bearing in mind the challenges that we all face. So, Chair, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Miles. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Councillor Lloyd-Sell. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hennessy first.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
Hiya, Miles. On action 3, number 13, can you give us a breakdown on the houses, 73? How many are 3, how many are 2, and how many are 1 are currently being built?
I can provide that to you outside this meeting, Chair, but I don't have that information to hand, but I can certainly get that to you fairly quickly.
Okay, thank you, Miles. Councillor Morgan. Oh, sorry, Councillor Lloyd-Selby, sorry, was first.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, apologies, I had a connection issue earlier in the meeting, so I actually wanted to declare, make a declaration of interest in relation to this agenda item, because I'm the Chair of Trustees for the Vale Food Bank, which is one of the organisations the Council works with in relation to supporting residents with cost of living issues. So my declaration is personal, not prejudicial, and I have dispensation to speak on the issue. Thank you, Miles, for the really helpful presentation. You referenced how critical the role of the third sector will be, and obviously in the same way as the council is facing significant financial pressures, the third sector is also facing challenges in terms of the impact of continuing cost of living crisis. So are you able to say anything about what work we're doing to ensure that the third sector is resilient and able to continue to work with us constructively over the coming year?
My colleague may wish to chip in here, Mike Ingram, but we have the Supporting People budget. One of the issues as well with housing, as you know, the HRA is protected. The general fund isn't, but what we've tried to do in the budget plans for next year is protect as best we can the general fund, which is used essentially for supporting our residents. So we will work more with the third sector and organisations who can support us. Whether we can provide more support, more financial support, that will be extremely challenging because our budgets are such that it will be difficult to provide more than we currently do. But other than that, we have the Supporting People grant from Welsh Government, which will continue to be provided. And we tender this work through South Wales, as you're probably aware. So it very difficult. I don't think I can give any great commitments, but we will need the third sector support and other organisation support more than ever, because some of the services that we have traditionally provided will be more difficult to provide in light of the current budget position. But we will certainly be looking to support our third sector partners where we can.
Councillor
just to say thank you. That's a really helpful and clear summary of the position that we're in. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Morgan.
Hi, Councillor Morgan, can you hear us? If you need to, you can just try and press your button again, see if you can come on.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you and we can see you.
Good. Good, I'm glad. I was only looking at objective 3, and I wonder whether we can flag up in that section what, as a council, we aim to do for the older members of our community with the question of care, keeping people in their own homes, and looking after our growing ageing population in the Vale. I know it's in there somewhere, but whether we should flag that up as something that we are going to address.
Go ahead, Miles.
Chair, I think it's a matter for this committee. If any of the aspects that are important to you and your constituents, you don't feel are sufficiently picked up within the description of the actions, then it's your opportunity to say that. And if you don't think that we've actively picked up the support provided or could be provided to older people, it's absolutely fine for you to put that forward as a suggestion for an additional action or an amendment to an action that's currently there as it stands.
Okay, Councillor Morgan.
No.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I just wonder, well, after paragraph 17 and 18 there, whether we could insert something specifically to say that we want to, whatever the phrase is, improve the support that we provide for the older members of our community. With an object, just a personal thing, to keep people in their own homes and respect the older members of our community, because I think that it is a ticking time bomb that's getting worse and worse, and we need to flag it up. And certainly in the areas of my community councils, I will invite them to respond to the consultation on this, because it's particularly because of what I see at home here. It's older people in rural communities that seem to be a little neglected at the moment. So can we put something in 17, 18 to say to improve or develop assistance and support for our older residents, particularly in rural communities?
I would be happy to second that. That will get sent back now with part of the comments. Yeah.
Recommendations.
Yes.
So when we go to recommendations, it's fine.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Okay. Councillor Campbell.
Hi, Councillor Morgan.
Councillor Campbell, are you here? Yes, we see
Hello?
you. Yes, hello.
Yeah, so I just wanted to raise a point on the timetable for consultation. So the leader sent an email out saying that she'd extended the consultation to the 21st of January. But I just wanted to see if we could potentially raise the consultation window to the end of January, just because it gives people a little bit more time to obviously consult. We have JCF within that time as well, so we can consult with our staff members and trade unions as well. And then we can do a little bit more engagement as well with our local communities, as Councillor Morgan mentioned as well, going back to our town and community councils to get more people to engage with the plan as well. So I was just wondering if we could potentially put that in as a comment to maybe extend the consultation period to the end of January.
Okay, thank you. Gina.
Hello. Miles, you mentioned that some of the services are going to be very difficult. Sorry about my screen. I have no idea why it's jumping like that. Can you hear me anyway?
Oh, we can hear you.
Yeah, sorry about that. Miles, can you tell me, does this mean that some of our parks and some of our libraries and our public toilets and bowling greens and tennis clubs and things like that might have to close because there won't be enough to man it and to pay for them? Especially where I live in Penarth, because this brings a lot of, a lot of people to Penarth because we've got these things, and to take it away, it seems a bit strange to me.
Miles, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, Chair, happy to. I would assure you it's not the council's intention to shut any of the services that it provides its residents. One of the things that we're going to have to look at is how we provide them in light of the challenges that the budget actually provides us with. So it's looking essentially at a range of different ways of operating some of our services. And we mentioned in the presentation the issue of using the third sector, various partnerships. So you may not be aware, so the majority of our bowls clubs are already run by the bowls clubs themselves. We transferred them to the bowls clubs a number of years ago because we feared that we wouldn't be able to invest in them going forward with the huge challenges we have in social care and education. And we have some really good models where they're working in the community and working really successfully. Romley is just one that I'll name. So I think it's a case of looking at how we run things and involving the community and running them so they're sustainable, so that the council doesn't have to be putting quite a lot of money into these facilities to run them in the future. Because the fear is that already social care and education accounts for 75% of the council's overall budget. And we're about protecting our people and actually assisting our kids through education. So we'll try and find ways of funding the other remaining services that are sustainable and can have life. So I'm certainly not saying we're going to shut parks or shut any of our outside facilities. We're looking at ways of finding the best way to operate them, involving the local community. So I don't want people to feel that we're giving up. We're certainly not. This is just another challenge in the many challenges we face, and you have very good officers who have lots of ideas about how we take things forward. So a challenging period, but I'm sure we'll get through it with the assistance of our voluntary sector partners and other organisations such as town and community councils.
Thank you, Miles. Councillor Payne. Oh, we've got Councillor Burnett has come in as well. Sorry.
Hi, Miles. I'm just interested in the... Liz, did you want to speak? Sorry.
No, I'll go after you. I'll switch off because something's happened to mine.
Okay. This is a question for you, Miles, and it's a point 21 on safeguarding board, an operational board. So in terms of the existing arrangements, what difference will this make? Is this I notice if you click on the link, it gives all the existing partners. So I'm just interested in what it is really.
Miles?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I don't want to drop him on the spot, but I don't sit on the safeguarding board. But I know my colleague, Mike Kingdom does. So I'm wondering whether I can provide you a response to that, councillor, outside this meeting. But I'll give my colleague the opportunity to see if he knows more than I do about this particular action within the plan. So if that would be okay with you, Chair.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm fine.
That's fine with me. Mike?
Hello. I do know a little bit more than Miles. In terms of safeguarding arrangements, we previously had local safeguarding boards. We had a safeguarding board in the Vale. Cardiff had a safeguarding board in Cardiff. Those boards were aligned to create a regional safeguarding board for children and for adults. And the regional board will continue to exist and will deal with much more overarching strategic matters that affect both local authorities. But it was felt that in terms of implementation of actions and plans within the authority, there was a necessity for us to develop our own local safeguarding arrangements in response to some of the reports and some of the learning. And we wanted to assure ourselves at the very local operational level that learning was being embedded within our various teams across the council. So there is terms of reference being developed for a local safeguarding group. There will be a representative from Housing and Community Safety that will sit on that board together with representatives across the spectrum of corporate directorates that have safeguarding responsibility. That first meeting hasn't happened yet, but will be happening shortly. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. Councillor Burnett.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add a little bit of reassurance when Gina was on earlier about, you know, what are the pressures going to mean, what's the budget going to mean, etc. It is really difficult, and as you know, Gina knows where to get hold of me. There will be cabinet report shortly, which will outline our budget. That will go to all scrutiny committees, and this scrutiny committee will obviously have an opportunity to contribute views into the general budget setting process. But just to give an example, that Miles talked about the way we work with third sector organisations. Well, you know, things like sports clubs, etc., are one side, but we were talking earlier about things like food banks, cost of living, that sort of stuff. More recently, you'll have seen a cabinet report where we added extra money, we allocated extra money into Citizens Advice Bureau for this financial year and next, because it is proven for every pound that we invest into support agencies such as Citizens Advice, that actually the outcome in terms of financial benefit for residents, etc., can be as high as a sort of 7 to 1, so a £7 outcome for every pound investing. And so those sorts of things are the types of things that we would look at. But any proposals that are being brought forward to council, to cabinet, before they go to council, they will come through this committee, and I would certainly be hoping that the committee have a full conversation about them. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Lloyd-Selby.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a final question, if I may, about Objective 3.17, develop and implement the Vale Alliance model to provide more integrated care, including meeting accommodation needs. And clearly in the current climate, partnership has never been more critical, not just with the third sector, but also with statutory partner, particularly health. So just wondering when we can hear more about the implementation of that work that's being done with health. I know it's being overseen, I think, but through Public Service Board, but would be very interested in having an update on that, and indeed the other work that's so critical with partners at some point in the future, if that's possible. Thank you.
Miles?
Chair, I don't have that information to hand, but I'm more than happy to get that to Councillor Lloyd-Selby outside of this meeting and to other members of this committee.
Thank you. Mike?
It's in response to... can you hear and see me?
I don't know what's going
on. Hello?
Hi, Mike, we can hear you. Can't see you at the moment.
Right, okay. I was just picking up on Councillor Lloyd-Selby point around the Vale Alliance. The Vale Alliance is a multi-agency group. We are meeting. It is about bringing a range of statutory partners, specifically focused on issues around social care and health. The work is led by the head of adult care at the Vale. I sit on the Vale Alliance board as a representative of housing, and it is specifically around ensuring that there is an holistic response to the issue facing the communities within the Vale. Some recent discussions have revolved around primary access to mental health services, for example, preventative services. And from a housing perspective, we've talked around homelessness and the impact on the individual, not from an accommodation, through an accommodation lens, but through a preventative lens, and how we can link far better with GP services, for example, and some of the work we do through social services, through the prevention work that we do. So it is about bringing all of those things together on the basis that the sum of all those parts will improve the outcomes for citizens.
Councillor Hennessy, if you'd like to come in.
Yeah, this is for you, Miles. Gina touched on about bowls clubs and things, and I know they have been handed over to the local communities to run like their groups. Do we have any plans to do the same thing with community centres, handing them over with an asset management transfer?
Go ahead, Miles.
Yeah. I mean, we're happy to look at any proposals put forward to us by either the community council or organising committees for community centres. We have a good model as it currently stands for community centres, whereby they're run by the committees, but the building's looked after by ourselves. So whether we can continue with that model for a long period of time is to be determined. But I'm very happy to look at any options. I mean, a lot of these issues have been brought to us by the clubs themselves, that wishing to be sort of responsible for their own destiny. So more than happy to look at alternative models. I mean, the key is to keep providing these services that are needed within the communities where they sit. So what we're really saying in terms of doing that, no idea is off the table. We're happy to listen and talk to anyone who thinks that they can run it in a more sustainable way. So no plans essentially to do anything specific to individual community centres as it stands, but happy to talk to any groups or community councils or interested bodies, third-party authorities who would like us to look to run them in a slightly different manner. I am pleased that the vast majority of them are run very well by the committees that run them, and we have a very good model of operation. But yeah, as I say, if we can look at running them in a slightly different way, and if the committee who's involved in that particular community centre wishes that to be the case, then we're very happy to work with them on that.
Just say thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you,
Miles.
Councillor Lovelock-Edwards, if you'd like to come in. Councillor Lovelock-Edwards, we can't hear you.
Sorry, Chair. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Miles, can I just refer you to Objective 3, page 16 and point 8. We're working with partners around community safety and specifically tackling antisocial behaviour and violence against women. Can you confirm if one of the key partners going forward will be the local schools and the education teams, taking into consideration a recent report where abuse against young women by young boys, in particular via social media, is increasing rather than decreasing, and incidents continue to rise in terms of the types of abuse and the sexualization of these of social media against young girls is having on us as a society. And I'm just curious as to know whether that you can confirm that the key partner going forward will include education on that basis of around community safety. Thank you.
Go ahead, Miles.
Yes, yeah, happy to confirm that. We have seen the reports and there was something actually on the news again today about abuse of children by children. So that engagement be as wide as it needs to be to get the outcomes that it needs to have. So yeah, certainly I can confirm that.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else wishing to speak on this item? I see nobody else wishing to speak. So this report has come to us for consideration and so that we can provide any comments and feedback to the Cabinet. Mark, let me just double check with you. We've had the comments from Councillor Morgan.
So we've got comments from Councillor Morgan. We've also got some commentary as well from Councillor Campbell about the consultation deadline. I think that's the main comments, but I don't know if members have got anything else they want to add before we go to approving the recommendations.
I wanted to just double check that with you because I wasn't sure if we'd missed one or not, but I don't think we have. Do the committee have any other comments they wish to send back to Cabinet? I'm guessing that's a big fact. No. Okay, so our committee happy to approve the draft plan with the addition of the comments made by Councillor Campbell and Councillor Morgan.
Happy to approve.
Yes. Okay. I'll second that then. Okay, thank you very much, Miles and Mike, for that. Very informative, thank you. Agenda item 5 is the final housing revenue account budget proposals 2024 to 25, rent setting 24 to 25, and housing revenue account business plan 24 to 25. This will be done by Matt and Gemma.
Hello, good evening. Apologies for the mouthful of the title of the report. So you'll have seen this report last year. We brought it on a similar kind of timetable in January to enable us to set the rent as at the beginning of April 2024. As the Chair said, this report sets the 24-25 budget. It seeks to set the rent for 24-25. There are also some fees and charges included in the report as well. And it also this year includes the housing revenue account business plan that we're required to prepare. And last year that was a separate report that came slightly later in the cycle, but it was felt that the information sits better together because ultimately the rent setting is reliant then on the assumptions in the housing business plan. So just to run through again, apologies, just picking at the summary. As you'll be aware, the housing revenue account is a ring-fenced account that needs to be self-funded, and it's funded mainly by council dwelling rents, and the expenditure consists of staffing, repairs and maintenance of the housing stock, and capital financing costs, which service the debt. We also have significant revenue contributions towards the capital programme during the period, and that capital programme includes decarbonisation and new developments. Apologies, I haven't shared my slides. Are you able to share the slides, please? Thank you very much. The report also, as I say, sets out the proposed rents and service charges for the coming financial year, and as part of the Renting Homes Wales Act, and we're required to give 2 months' notice, so that's why we're bringing the report in January. The report's due to go on to Cabinet tomorrow, and then on to a special council for approval. The report also sets out the annual 30-year housing business plan, which we're required to submit by the 31st of March 2024. We haven't actually received the final guidance for the housing business plan for 24-25, but we're not expecting any significant changes, and that's why we're bringing it before you today. There are a few typos in the recommendations, so apologies, and I just wanted to try and clear that up as clearly as possible. So some of the paragraph references are incorrect. So it should be a reference to paragraph 2.25 for the rent increase, and then paragraphs 2.28 to 2.35 for the other fees and charges. So this slide sets out the final proposed 24-25 budget. And as you can see, there is a significant adjustment around capital expenditure that's funded from the revenue account. And this is partly because we had a significant figure in 23-24 to try and bring that reserve balance down. and so that explains some of the adjustment. That is still a significant contribution to capital from revenue funding, and that reduces slightly over the kind of 5-year period. So it steps down to 7.4 million in 25-26 down to 6.4 million in year 5. But those assumptions run through the business plan in terms of ensuring the affordability of the model over that 30-year period. In terms of income, that the dwelling rents reflect a 6.7% increase, which takes us up to the maximum that we received in the rent setting letter. And that will give us a small surplus in year, which will just allow us to make sure that we maintain the ring-fenced reserve for the housing revenue account in accordance with the minimum that we've set as part of the business plan. So this slide just sets out some of those budgetary changes that we are proposing for 24-25, and apologies, in the report, I think this sets out the proposed budget changes for 23-24, so it should obviously read 24-25. There are some changes in respect to pay and inflation. There are some small savings within the budget proposals and some committed growth. We obviously are reflecting that dwelling and non-dwelling rent increase within the figures, and then a significant movement around the capital expenditure funded from the revenue account, which, as I've explained, brings that reserve balance down. And this slide just is drawn from the report and just sets out that balance then of the gross expenditure in 24-25. Showing obviously a significant contribution from the capital expenditure from a revenue account, and some significant capital financing costs, repairs and maintenance, and supervision and management. And the distinction between supervision and management general and supervision and management special is the special element relates to elements of sheltered accommodation, for instance, and hostel accommodation. This next slide then sets out the capital expenditure within the housing business plan across the 5-year period, and sets it out over some key elements. So we are reflecting within the business plan the need to meet WHQS 23 to decarbonise the housing estate, and also there's a significant new build programme within the business plan. And then this table is also drawn from the report and sets out what those rental increases will look like by the category of accommodation. So it sets out the average rent for 24-25 per week, proposed average rent per week, what the increase or decrease is, and then the proposed average rent per week for 24-25. And that assumes that we're going to increase rents by 6.7%, which, as I say, is the maximum allowable. And the reason that decision is proposed is to allow maximum investment in the housing stock through the business plan, building some very much needed new accommodation, but also investing in the funding requirements of WHQS 23 and further works to decarbonise the estate. And this sets out that some of the split of that expenditure. So regeneration and new build is a significant proportion of that, around 37% of that capital expenditure. And apologies, that slide is slightly confusing, but obviously there are a number of other elements that you'll be used to seeing within the capital programme. 15% of that relates to energy efficiency. This slide sets out those other charges within the report, and those are set out on a 50-week basis, the 23-24 actual charges, and then the increased charges proposed for 24-25. So just to quickly summarise the next steps for the report, so the Cabinet final budget proposals for the housing business plan are due to go on the 11th. The plan will be considered by council at a special meeting on the 15th of January. And then these plans then will be rolled up into the overarching capital proposals and treasury management strategy that will be taken to Cabinet on the 29th of February and then on to Cabinet on the 6th of March, with a view for the rent increases to take effect from the 1st of April. So those are the main elements that I was going to draw out on the report. I'm happy to take any elements, and I'm sure Mike will be happy to come in on some of the housing elements as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Gemma. Councillor Hennessy.
Hi, Gemma. Can you go back to the page with the amounts per houses, flats, rents and all, houses and everything? Not that one? Yeah.
This one? Yeah.
Let me see. Yeah. Just on a flat complex alone, you're looking at £26.80 a month. If you include the council tax increase, if it happens, residents are going to be expected to pay on average an increase just on a flat alone over £30. How can this council justify that? I'm sorry, I can't see how it can be justified. I know the Welsh Government says the maximum we can do is 6.7%, but we don't have to do that.
Chair, if I could come back, but I think I'm also going to be asking Mike and Matt to be coming in. So obviously there are some considerations about not setting the maximum allowed, and your concerns are absolutely justified. So obviously we do know that in terms of the new builds within the Housing Revenue Cap, they're very much needed, and also the requirements of WHQS are required across the estate by Welsh Government, and they need to be funded within the Housing Improvement Programme. Obviously, the decision not to increase at the maximum, you lose that cumulative effect then, don't you, within the potential funding across the programme. So it's not just the impact then in 24-25, it's the impact over the 30-year period that needs to be considered. So those are the purely financial reasons for setting the 6.7%, but I'm sure my colleagues will come in and set out the case from a housing perspective as well.
Mike, would you like to come in on this?
Yes, apologies. Can you hear me? I know you can't see me. My screen.
Yeah, we can hear you, Mike. It's a bit crackly, but we can hear you.
Okay. I think the first point to make out is nobody wants to increase rents. We appreciate and understand, obviously, the difficulties our tenants are facing, as we're all facing at the moment due to the inflationary pressures, interest rates, and so on and so forth. The 6.7% is the maximum allowed, and Welsh Government did take and did consult widely with the sector, with third sector organisations, with financial institutions, and the aspect with regard to financial institutions, particularly for housing associations who borrow their money on the private markets, and I guess those institutions wanting some degree of certainty in relation to interest repayments and what have you. But going back to the point of the council proposing a 6.7% increase, we have a viable plan over 30 years. I know most local authorities are looking, and ourselves are looking to increase to 6.7%. We have a number of factors which lead us to that conclusion. Clearly, we have a significant homelessness crisis in the Vale of Morgan. We need to increase the supply of accommodation that's available, and our new build programme is key and instrumental in achieving those aims. But bearing in mind that our housing rents are 30% lower than private sector rents in the Vale of Morgan, they are more affordable than any other form of rented accommodation, in the area. Our rents are also lower than comparative RSLs in the local authority area. And you can see from the report that we are below that baseline amount. It was welcome to see through the budgetary statement an increase in local housing allowance rates, particularly for those in the private sector, which may assist some people, non-council tenants. But in relation to the 6.7%, we must understand that whilst some of that will deal with the inflationary pressures, for example, on new build, we've seen a doubling in terms of the cost of certain materials. For new build, we're seeing quotations around £4,000 per square foot for some of the new build, which is, as I say, considerably more than last year and the year before. Secondly, we have the impact of WHQS 23 and improving our existing council housing stock and new requirements on the local authority to improve our energy efficiency of our homes, etc. And all of that costs money, effectively. If we look at the housing improvements, clearly we have programs in terms of external wall insulation, improving the thermal efficiency of our properties, and ultimately the hope would be that clearly that would reduce energy usage within the home and take pressure off our tenants. But ultimately, as I say, the work that we need to do to improve the stock to the relevant levels within WH23 will cost more. But I also reflect on the fact that the impact of rent increases will not impact on the vast majority of our tenants. The vast majority of our tenants are in receipt of housing benefit or universal credit, and as a result of which, universal credit and housing benefit will increase to cover the majority, if not all, of the increased housing costs. So tenants will not see a significant difference in terms of their expenditure on their housing costs. Clearly mindful of the 30% of tenants who are not in receipt of benefits, and the impact on those obviously is more because they would have to contribute all of the cost of the uplift. But as I say, this isn't very much like a spend to save initiative. We want to improve our homes. We want to make them more thermally efficient. We want to build more properties because homelessness, it's not palatable. I don't think to have over 300 households in temporary accommodation for long periods of time. And as I say, that investment is required in order to address those key priorities. But whilst, as I say, all increases, whether they be rent or council tax, I appreciate they are not, I don't think any of us want to do that. But as Miles has mentioned earlier in the meeting, the financial position is such as that it means that we are having to consider the income that we receive as a housing department and the amount of investment that we wish to make in order to achieve the high quality homes for our tenants. Hopefully that will highlight some of the reasons for the increase.
Thank you, Mike. Councillor Lloyd Selby.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mike, for that very reassuring response. I mean, obviously the council's in a very difficult position, and I do think it is important to emphasise again that council rents, even with this uplift, will still be approximately 30% lower than the level set within the private sector, and I think it's something like 14% below the local housing allowance for the Vale. And it's important that we offer that reassurance to tenants. And I note the report also gives a pledge to minimise all evictions and to work effectively with partners to deliver on the commitment not to evict into homelessness. But clearly, when we have over 3,000 people who are living, 3,000 households who are living in temporary accommodation, and I think something like 6,000 households on the waiting list, I'm sure we can all agree it's absolutely critical that we not only continue to invest in existing properties to ensure that they're safe and warm for our tenants, but we also continue to develop new accommodation so that we can deliver more affordable housing for people. And I also note that the report talks about the continued support that will be made available to council tenants. I think it says something like £250,000 of additional income was claimed by tenants who were entitled to that support. And we've been able to get alongside them and enable them to make sure that they claim everything that they're entitled to. And I think that those are measures which will continue to be critical in the coming months. And finally, just to make the point that in terms of the pressure that tenants are facing, which is very real and very difficult, I referenced cost of living pressures earlier, that those pressures are clearly not being driven by this council, but are being driven primarily by decisions that are made by UK government. And what we will continue to do, as this report sets out, and I'm certainly reassured about, is do all that we can to minimise cost increases, but also to maximise the support that's available to our tenants. And on that basis, I would support the recommendations in the report. Thank you.
Councillor Payne. Oh, sorry.
No, Councillor Payne's come off. It was Councillor Edwards and then Mrs. John.
Oh, right, yeah.
Sorry.
So the screen in front of me has stopped working again.
First of all, it's Councillor Lovelock.
Okay, so Councillor Lovelock Edwards.
Councillor Lovelock Edwards, are you able to repress your microphone button again? See if that will get you on. Councillor Lovelock Edwards, did you want to speak?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
You can hear me now. Okay, sorry. I thought that Councillor Helen Payne was ahead of me, so apologies if I've jumped the gun. I just want to refer to page 7 of the report at 1.1 and ask for balance. And to reflect what colleagues have already said, in that no one wants to be having this discussion, especially during the cost of living crisis. And as we see today through the Prime Minister's questions, there's still this complete absence of insight and reflection on what people like you and I are going through by the Tories. But nevertheless, if we don't have this rent increase, is it fair to state, or would it be a fair analysis, that there would be no investment in stock? There would certainly be no opportunity for us to build the vitally needed houses that we desperately need in the Vale. And would that have an impact on our statutory obligations into the WHQS? And what that means for us as a local authority if we're not able to sort of press ahead with that investment in the decarbonisation and making our houses as suitable and as safe and as adaptable as they possibly can. Is there an impact on our statutory obligations if this rent increase isn't utilised in that way? Thank you.
Mike, I see your name on the screen. Are you looking to come in on this?
Thank you, Chair. In response to the question, the answer is yes. We are required to deliver a viable housing business plan. Without the rent increase, the plan, I can tell you now, is not viable. And as a result of which, the council would have to make some decisions with regard to what it then saw its priorities. It would result in cuts to either the house building programme or cuts to our existing housing investment. We would run the risk, potentially, of not meeting statutory requirements in terms of WHQS 23. But we are required to provide a viable business plan. So whatever those decisions were, it would result in something not being done, as I say, in order to provide a viable business plan.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Mrs. John is next on my list, if you'd like to come in.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you and see you.
It's just to ask, you've spoken about the rent. Is the council tax also going up by so much?
The council's the council will be publishing its draft budget proposals for consultation next week. They go to cabinet on the 18th of January, so they're not public yet.
Can you not give us any idea about how much it's going to go up?
I think it'd be fair to give an indication that when we took the refresh of the medium-term financial plan forward in November, there was a number modelled at 4.9% at that stage. So that's in. Obviously, things can change, and as you heard Miles talk about earlier, we're operating in a really tough financial environment. Really difficult to see council tax coming in at a level below that.
Thank you. Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Chair. We're in the biggest housing crisis since the Second World War. I find it incredible that councillors would...
Councillor Payne, you've frozen.
We as a council are building new housing. We are accommodating the needs of our tenants, and we are tackling the housing crisis in terms of homelessness and doing sterling work via, in particular, our Supporting People team. So some of the questions I was going to ask were answered actually in the sensitivity analysis in the report. One of those was around the inflationary pressures and the impact on housing benefit in relation to inflation and, you know, the increase in housing benefit. If you're looking around 7 are actually on housing benefit who are tenants of the Vale of Glamorgan Council. So I think a lot of the questions that are asked tonight are actually answered in the report.
Yep. All done, yeah. Councillor Lloyd Selby, you're next.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to respond to the question raised by tenant reps because, you know, I think we all really do appreciate the pressure that people are facing. I declared an interest at the beginning of this meeting because I set up the food bank, and I see that firsthand day in, day out. So this is very real, and the council wouldn't be taking such a difficult decision unless there was no other way of ensuring that we could invest effectively in homes. But I think it's important that we just make it as clear as possible to tenants that if they're struggling, then it's really important that they reach out to us as a landlord and to their landlords if they're in social housing. The council website has information front and centre about help with cost of living, but there's often no substitute for a conversation, and I just think it's important that all of us emphasise that support is available and that officers and organisations are here to offer support to those who might be struggling. And I think it's really important that we offer that reassurance to people who are looking at this and concerned about how they might be going to manage. Thank you.
Councillor Lovelock-Edwards.
Can you hear me, Chair? Okay, thank you. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, Chair. Yeah, I just following on from that, and thank you for allowing me to speak again. And I want to echo Councillor Lloyd Selby's comments around sort of the support that's necessary and vital for tenants. I know that the paper gives a commitment in terms of no evictions and support for those people who engage. But I think we also need to be very careful about the language that we use. And we've already witnessed tonight some inflammatory language that's best left sort of at the office door, as it were. And I think it's important that we as councillors do all that we can to help fully explain to tenants the rationale behind any decisions that are taken and the reasons why. And we also use language where we can reach out, and I suppose plain English is always key here, to ensure that people understand why these decisions are being taken at this moment in time and what the alternatives possibly could be if we didn't take them. Because, it's already been echoed here. Nobody wants to be in this position and having to make these difficult decisions. But with the crisis that we're in, we can't afford not to. And it's important that tenants understand that fully. And so that we engage with them as much and as robustly as we can in the coming weeks. Thank you.
Mike, are you wanting to come in? I do see Councillor Goodjohn is also wanting to speak, but I will bring him in after Mike has come back on those points.
Yeah, it was just to remind committee that last year Scrutiny committee considered a report which increased the amount of staffing resources to support the income and money advice team. We have appointed additional staff now into that service. We also are happy and do provide money advice assistance to anybody who contacts us, and we are always available to do so. We, as is mentioned in the report, we've signed up to a number of commitments as a local authority and as all social housing providers have done not to evict. And certainly this local authority is mindful of that responsibility, and we work extremely hard with our tenants and with our staff to look at a whole range of issues that our tenants face, and we come to bespoke solutions based on the individual circumstances of those tenants. Our tenant circumstances are unique to them, so we are very, very mindful of that. We are increasing the amount and have increased the amount of support that is available to our tenants, and of course, if we feel that it is necessary to continue that investment or to increase that capacity, then of course we will do so. It may be of interest, in some work that we had done with regard cost of living, many of the issues that our tenants are concerned about tend not to have been in relation to rent per se, although I appreciate it is a factor, but other issues, other cost of living issues are impacting on our tenants more, and those tend to have been the utility related increases in terms of gas and electricity and what have you. And therefore any approach that we take in relation to supporting our tenants does look at the issue of affordability, and we obviously do come to, as I mentioned, bespoke arrangements with our tenants where they are suffering financial stress.
Thank you, Mike. The next person we have due to speak, who wishes to speak, is Councillor Ewan Goodjohn, who's not actually a member of this committee. So I want to double check with committee that they are happy to have Councillor Goodjohn speak. I see no objections. Oh, Councillor Lloyd Selby, you wanted to say something? Okay, Councillor Goodjohn.
Thank you, Chair. So Councillor Lovelock-Edwards talked about plain language. I'd like to make a couple of comments quickly and then some questions for the officers. Let's start with this. From the rent increase, if any tenant is unable to pay, no one will be evicted. That's part of this plan. There is about £7 to £8 million in energy bills being paid by our tenants that we can reduce vastly or even eliminate entirely through our plans for energy efficiency use, including solar panels on roofs. £2 million can be saved by the council by ending the local families that we have in hotels that we have to put up. So if we're building more properties, we can take them out, put them in homes and save money. Additionally, extra services to tenants can support through benefits, extra money claimed through benefits that can support our tenants further. And on top of all of that, 70% of our tenants are on benefits and will not feel the full impact of this rise through housing benefit support, okay? That is the support that we are giving. Now, considering all of that, what we have on today looks somewhat reasonable if you consider the saving of money that we can make as a council, so less rises in the future, and additionally the saving to tenants that we can make. That is the proposal on the table. So I'd like to make some questions to the officers regarding how possible this is. So first off, I don't know if Miles might be the best person to ask on this item, but I asked a question to full council in July 2023 regarding the targets being set for EPC-A levels being reached. It was said that that would be 2030 and that our housing stock would reach net zero carbon levels by 2033. Is that target still the same with the changes to the Welsh Housing Quality Standard this year?
Miles?
Chair, I am still here. I'm not sure whether Mike has the answer to that question. I understand there was some change from Welsh Government in relation to the Welsh Housing Quality Standard EPC work, but I'm not sure if Mike has that information. I don't have it at hand, sorry, Chair.
Mike, if you'd like to come in.
I think that's a very relevant question, Councillor Goodjohn. The guidance which eventually came about 2 months ago in relation to WH23 was amended, and was amended in relation to capacity to deliver retrofit schemes in the timescales that were originally set in the consultation document regarding EPC 23 and the commitments from Welsh Government itself. The new the WHQS framework now requires all local authorities that all of their properties achieve EPC C in the next 2 years. But we're also required by 2026 to provide to have assessed all of our council properties and make an assessment in relation to what would be the cost of those properties being brought up to EPC A. Welsh Government, once we've provided that information to Welsh Government, I think Welsh Government will then do some number crunching. But I think from a local authority perspective, and specifically at the Vale, we've made some assumptions in terms of the individual costs within our housing business plan. They are in the region of £20,000 to £25,000, I think, per property in terms of investment. We will continue through our investment programme, as Councillor Goodjohn probably is aware. The majority of our properties already achieve EPCC, and therefore we will continue to invest regardless of that target, the targets potentially moving down the road. We will continue to invest to improve our properties. I think there are questions that we have in terms of understanding the cost of investment versus the benefits, and I guess better understanding that. We are in the process of undertaking a pilot at the moment to the initial tranche of assessment of our properties, 400 properties, and we'll have a better idea in terms of informing our business plan process at the end of that. In terms of the way we think the costs will ultimately be. But the aspiration of all properties achieving EPCA by 2030, I think is unrealistic and unlikely, Councillor Goodjohn, given the costs involved. Welsh Government have indicated, and it was welcome to see that Welsh Government had continued to invest in the optimised retrofit programme, which is really welcome. But I think most local authorities at the moment, in looking at their plans, the cost of achieving both the levels of new build and the levels of investment in council properties is starting to cause extreme strain on our housing business plans. So whilst an uplift will allow us to continue with the priorities that we currently have, once we've assessed our entire stock, it'll give me a better idea as to how long do we think it would take us to achieve that full optimised retrofit EPCA. Bear in mind that we're already building our new houses which achieve that standard.
Thank you, Mike. Is there anybody else wishing to speak? Oh, Councillor Goodjohn.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for the response. I just have a couple more questions on a similar item. It's good to see you talk about the realistic prospect, although it is a sad prospect if the Welsh Government are not providing the support that you need to hit those targets that they themselves have set, including the public sector net zero. We have to hit net zero by 2030. That is the requirement that we've been set as a public sector, and local authorities are a huge portion of that. And if that is not the support being given by Welsh Government, that needs to be challenged by us as a local authority. Additionally, when it comes to the Welsh Housing Quality Standard, as you were stating some of the targets, one of the targets is to finally reach EPCA by the 31st of March 2034. By that date, in energy efficiency and in environment and regeneration, we have investment of £67 million. Now that's an extremely large amount of money and incredible to see. But as you were saying, we're requiring a lot from grants. And I don't know if the finance team can assist with this, but the the estimated amount of money per house that we would need to reach that level, it was stated earlier on in the document, was between £25,000 and £50,000. Now, that with a bit of quick maths leads you to we need between 96 million and 192 million pounds, which means there's a shortfall there, which we can get from housing retrofit grants. However, we do need that support from Welsh Government in order to provide that. So considering the backtracking from Welsh Government this time, can we be certain that the support needed from Welsh Government is going to be there on top of the money that we are providing through this business plan to reach those targets of energy efficiency?
Sorry, apologies, we had to confer on the answer there. Unfortunately, we aren't certain about what the future Welsh Government priorities will be and what the future Welsh Government funding will be. So we can't give you that clarity, unfortunately. Apologies.
Mike?
I think Gemma has answered the first part. What I would say is that we receive major repairs allowance as a form of grant from Welsh Government. Major repairs allowance has been static for quite a number of years and hasn't been increased. In speaking to colleagues at the heads of housing in other local authority areas, discussions, very recent discussions, we are intending to lobby Welsh Government to review the position on MRA to address the issue that you raised, Councillor Good-John, in terms of the support from Welsh Government to assist us in achieving proposals and requirements in the Welsh Housing Quality Standard.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Anybody else?
Okay, thank you. So, as there's nobody else wishing to speak on that item, I'm going to go to the recommendations. There are 5. I will go through them individually. The first recommendation is that Scrutiny Committee recommend to Cabinet and subsequently full Council to approve the final... Sorry? Oh, Councillor Hennessy, you want to come in?
Sorry, Chair. Just to let you know, I will be voting against the recommendations.
Okay. Okay, the first recommendation is that Scrutiny Committee is recommend to Cabinet and subsequently full Council to approve the final housing revenue account budget proposals for 2024 to 2025. As Councillor Hennessy has already indicated that he is going to vote against these.
Sorry, I'm only voting against the 6.7% council rent increases for tenants.
Okay. So that would be the second. Yeah, that would be the second recommendation. Yeah, that would be the second recommendation.
Chair, apologies to interrupt. The housing business plan is unaffordable without the 6.7 increase.
Okay.
So the other recommendations would not be able to stand without the 6.7% rental increase.
Okay, after what we've just been advised by Gemma, I'm going to take a vote on each recommendation. Or would you vote, or would, well, we can vote on block, yes. Is that what you're saying, Mark? Yeah?
And obviously Councillor Hennessy is not happy, you can obviously say no.
Okay. All right, so we're going to vote for the recommendations on block. So for all those for the recommendations.
Chair, we can do Sorry, everyone. We can do this now electronically for the e-conference system. So obviously this vote will be for all members of the committee. I'm afraid tenant representatives won't be able to vote because you don't have voting rights. So apologies there. But for the rest of the membership of this committee, you can certainly vote on the proposal. So we're going to move, Chair, if you're happy, on block. So it'll be a simple yes, no, or abstain on the recommendations. So we'll shortly be activating the vote. So you should get an option to click on yes, no, or abstain. You'll also get this on the microphones as well. God, do you know the colour coded on it? Is it red for? Plus and minus. Plus and minus, yes. Yeah. Plus is what, 4? Plus is 4. Plus, the plus button on your microphone will be 4, the item. Middle is abstain, and I believe the minus then would be against. Yeah, if you're happy to start the vote, Chair.
Yes, I'm happy to start the vote.
Right, that should have started for everyone.
No, that is 100. 17, 22 is 100%.
Bear with me a second, Chair. We just want to double check. There's what it looks like. There's 9 votes have been casted, but there's 10 allowed to vote tonight. So there's 1 member perhaps hasn't voted. Can we just double check? Oh, sorry.
I voted.
Oh, someone else has come up then. That's fine. Right, that's everyone, Chair. The results should come on the screen now. Right, so.
Unfortunately, Councillor Hennessy, you and I have lost the vote. So as a result of the vote, 80% have voted for the recommendations, 20 against. So that will be that the recommendations have been moved.
Sorry, Chair, can I just, for the previous item, agenda item 4 for the ADP, just to let members know that the comments will go to the director for consideration and then it'll go to Cabinet. It's not a direct reference to Cabinet, so I should have made that clear earlier. Thank you.
Oh, of course, yes. So I misread that on the piece of paper here. That was my fault. Okay, so agenda item 6 is the third quarter scrutiny recommendation tracking 2023 to 24, an updated committee forward work programme schedule 2023 to 2024. I'll pass this over to you, Mark.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair, and thanks, committee. Hopefully you can all hear me. This is our regular quarterly report to committee, the purpose of which is to report progress on scrutiny recommendations and to consider the updated forward work programme together with any slippage and any updates, etc. for 23-24. In terms of the key issues for consideration, for concerning appendices A to D, which is referred to in paragraph 2.1 of the report. This sets out the previous recommendations of the Scrutiny Committee, and members are requested to review progress against each recommendation to assess whether further action may be required, ensure the required actions undertaken, and to confirm which recommendations are to be agreed as completed. Most are completed now, but we do have a few recommendations still open ongoing, which have been updated or in the process of being so, and a responses either been chased up or sorted or sought. With regards to paragraphs 2.3 and 2.4, the work programme has been aligned to the quarterly Cabinet Forward Work Programme, October to December 2023, as considered and agreed by Cabinet on the 5th of October 2023. Members are also requested to confirm approval of the updated Scrutiny Committee Work Programme, which is attached to Appendix E. it being noted that the schedule is a proposed list of items for consideration and may be subject to change depending on prevailing circumstances. Schedule includes notes on reports that have been subject to slippage during this period and or was scheduled to be reported in the previous quarters, i.e. quarters 1 and 2. One thing I will mention to committee, we've had a few changes, so obviously subject to approval of the forward work programme by the committee, I would ask if I can make some amendments before it's uploaded. So, for example, in January, it's simply renaming the rent setting report entry to the HRA report that we've just had through. And also, obviously, to add the urgent item concerning the Safer Vale partnership, which was also called in and incorporated into January's part of the work programme. Also for February 2024, the capital and revenue monitoring reports will probably be going to March's meeting, so I will move those into March's forward work programme. The other finance reports remain the same. I'd also refer members to paragraph 2.10 and the relaunch of the scrutiny topic suggestion form. Following feedback from various stakeholders, a new form is now available, which I will share the link with the members, as well as this now being accessible to public online. This will also be included on future iterations in the report. This is still a work in progress, and we'll be looking to get the form in a format where this can be entered and submitted fully online. Currently needs to be downloaded and then emailed to Democratic Services. Paragraph 3.1 regarding the Scrutiny Public Participation Guide. There is an updated version now available, which I will also share with members after this meeting, and that link will be included on future versions of the report going forward. I'll obviously hand back to you now, Chair, and if members have any questions, then I will, of course, try to address these at the meeting or provide an answer thereafter. And I just ask members to endorse the recommendations subject to the changes I've outlined already. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Do committee have any comments to make? Councillor Hennessy.
I'm just on Appendix A, Mark. The first one, the travellers.
Yeah.
Have we had any communications with them whatsoever?
Well, if you look on there, the last update would have been in, yeah. I'm not.
It doesn't. It says that we've asked to meet them, but it doesn't actually say anyone turned up from their side.
I haven't got that update at the moment, Councillor, so I'll have to ask either Mike or have to obviously address that after the meeting. We've not had any further updates as yet. Obviously, it's a long-term process, so I'm not sure if the mediator has spoken with the community as yet. So I'll ask if Mike has got any further information.
Okay, thank you.
I think Mike is on.
Yep. Oh, my screen's working again. Councillor, sorry, Mike, if you'd like to come in.
Yeah, it's just to confirm there is an update. We have engaged a third party independent of the council. They have engaged with the traveller community at Hayes Road, and they have indicated that they, in general terms, that they're happy with regards to their current living circumstances. However, would be prepared to discuss proposals with the council should there be a proposal to consider.
Okay. Councillor Lovelock-Edwards.
Thanks, Chair. Mark, can you confirm, is the Youth Justice Plan coming to us in February or March? So I thought I saw that it had both months written down as slip into February and then slip into March. But is it February it's coming to us? Thanks.
I'll just double check that now. Bear with me a sec. I think there has been some movement on it, Chair, because of officers gathering more information. Bear with me a second. I believe we've provisionally got it down for February 2024. There is a separate report in March 2024, which is the Youth Justice and Early Sport Mid-Year Performance Report. So you might be referring to that.
Councillor Lovelock-Edwards. Okay. Councillor Lloyd-Selby.
Yeah, thank you. Apologies, I had a bit of a connection issue. So if this has already been addressed, I'm sorry. Just in terms of the annual update on the tenant and leaseholder participation strategy. So I think the report notes that it's slipped to a future date due to capacity issues. Just wondering whether or not there's any update on when that might come to committee. Thank you.
I'll have to refer that to Mike if Mike is still online to see if there's any movement on that.
Mike, if you'd like to come in.
Yeah, the capacity issue is no longer an issue. We have appointed into Nick Jones's previous substantive post. Nick was, as you probably are aware, was seconded into the operational manager post. We've now replaced 3 weeks ago. We've replaced his and have appointed his successor. Work is ongoing at the moment. I would hope that we're going to be in a position to bring that date to you probably in around early spring.
Councillor Lloyd-Selby. Okay. Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Chair. It's on the Q3 tracking, the visit to Youth Justice and Early Intervention. Any news on that open day at all?
I've had nothing back as yet, Councillor Payne, but I will follow that up with Rachel and her team with the Youth Justice, okay?
Thank you, Mark. We've still got Mike as wanting to speak. Oh, his name's gone again now. Is there anybody? Oh, Councillor Payne, do you want to come back in? Your name is still appearing on screen. Oh, it's gone now again. Okay, thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak on this item? No? Okay, our committee happy to approve the forward work programme and the third quarter scrutiny recommendation tracking, subject to the changes, with the changes, amendments made that Mark has advised us of. Councillor Hennessy?
Yeah, happy to approve.
Okay. Right, so agenda item 7 is any items which the chair has decided are urgent, part 1. We do have one item, and this has been called in by Councillor Ian Johnson. It is the Safer Vale Partnership Strategy 2023 to 2028. I believe Benny is taking this.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Great. Can you hear me okay?
Sorry, bear with us a minute, Benny. Councillor Johnson, because he's called it in, we'll obviously have to introduce the report.
Course.
Apologies for that.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for the introduction there. The Safer Vale Partnership Strategy 2023 to 2028 went to Cabinet a couple of weeks ago, and I'm not sure is that working quite well on the. I'm going to sit over here, or yeah. The Safer Vale Partnership strategy went to Cabinet before Christmas. It's a document which is, sort of new, obviously, but is being extended from 3 years to 5 years. I thought it was appropriate that as a document that was being of such great relevance to this committee that it should be coming here for as part of its sign-off process, so that councillors could ask questions that they have regarding the strategy and how it will be implemented. I think there's maybe a convoluted process of scrutiny, because this strategy is overseen by the Public Services Board, which in turn is overseen by the Corporate Performance and Resources Scrutiny Committee. However, in reality, that level of oversight doesn't happen from the Corporate Performance Resources Committee, and I suspect, given the breadth of work that the Public Services Board need to undertake, I don't know whether they are able to interrogate the work done by the Safer Vale Partnership in the same way that this committee can do so. The strategy that we have in front of us is one which is broadly a narrative, and I recognise that there are annual development plans which are there, which will provide more meat on the bone for some of the narrative which is provided here, but it does also have an element there around scrutiny and about explanation, which I think would be useful to understand exactly how development plans will be set, what targets will be set, how they will be monitored, how those will be scrutinised, and also fundamentally where the strategy takes us over the 5 years, because I'm not sure that the strategy we have really, for obvious reasons, and not least of which is that many of the causes of the issues that fall within the strategy are outside of the ability of the council to completely change. Obviously, sort of understanding where the strategy takes us in 5 years' time, I think would be helpful for those on the committee, and also those of us who aren't on the committee, but like myself, who've requested this to come in tonight. So I look forward to Benny's explanation of the strategy and answering some of the queries I raised there about the target setting process and the scrutiny of that as it goes forward. Thank you very much, Chair. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you. Benny, if you'd like to come in.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Johnson. I don't know if it's helpful. I'll take recommendation from you, Chair, for me to run through the report that was sent to Cabinet, or to kind of go straight to running through the kind of high level aspects of the strategy and answering Councillor Johnson's queries.
Maybe if you could go through the report, there may be some things in there that committee have questions on later.
Excellent, no problem at all. So I think, as said, was sent to was to present the Safer Vale Partnership Strategy. It was sent to Cabinet for adoption by the Council in order for the Council to meet its statutory duty and to demonstrate its commitment to reducing crime and disorder across the Vale. So just by kind of way of background, really, the 1998 Crime and Disorder Act placed a requirement on responsible authorities to work together to reduce crime and disorder in their areas, and the Safer Vale Partnership is the Vale's response to that requirement. The partnership has evolved considerably since its inception in 1999, and back in 2020, Cabinet approved the previous strategy, which ran from 2020 to 2023. That strategy successfully delivered a number of improvements in the field of community safety, notably the full upgrade of the public space CCTV across the whole of the Vale, and the implementation of twice weekly discussions that significantly alleviate pressure from the multi-agency risk assessment conferences, or MARICs, which are the vehicle through which high-risk victims of domestic abuse are provided with multi-agency support. So this current draft strategy is the continuation, really, of the previous work of the last 3 years, really to build on the work that strategy achieved. As noted, one of the significant changes of that strategy is the change from a 3-year to a 5-year strategy. Now, the this was agreed through partnership consultation, and the overarching the change was approved as a reflection of the kind of overarching expectation of the community safety partnership to deal with issues that are set by legislation, set by policy, that aren't expected to change within the course of the strategy's lifetime. It's also a reflection on the kind of complexity of the issues around community safety, or the issues that community safety deals with, and aims to provide the flexibility required to deal with those and to implement delivery plans that can respond to those over that full period as well. Again, anticipating that there won't be changes or kind of big changes in those areas across 5 years. It's probably also worth noting that community safety teams within the local authority and the kind of partnership more generally are under significant resource pressures, and so the need to refresh the strategy after 3 years was seen as something that could be changed in 5 years to support the resource pressures that the team faced. So the draft strategy is intended then as a kind of high level strategic document that details the vision, mission, kind of the backbone of the community safety partnership, and the general direction within which the community safety partnership will be working and will achieve outcomes across the 5-year period. So it looks at those kind of higher level priorities and will be reliant on an annual strategic assessment, which will be an analysis of each responsible authority's data sets in order to look at the specific areas in which crime and disorder need to be addressed through this multi-agency forum, and will therefore create a delivery plan, an annual delivery plan off the back of that strategic assessment. The previous strategy, which operated as a 3-year strategy with a 3-year implementation plan, hit a real problem when COVID came and kind of changed a lot of the actions, or placed an enormous amount of pressure on a lot of the actions, which many of which 3 years into the future were no longer appropriate or relevant. So the change for this current strategy is in order to make sure that the delivery plan has a more direct link to a strategic assessment that is more relevant to the time frame, a yearly reporting time frame, and also ensures that the community safety partnership is more transparent and more accountable in the work that they do. So those delivery plans will be accompanied by a yearly annual report, which will evidence the work that has been achieved and not achieved throughout the reporting period. A significant amount of partnerships work, and this is one of the things that the partnership have been looking to improve as well, comes from annual funding. And so the funding will inevitably change and shape the delivery plan that is implemented. So it's also about giving the flexibility to make sure that the delivery plan can respond to the needs based on the available resources and additional funds that the community safety partnership are able to secure. So the draft strategy presents those high-level priorities, and they are to prevent and reduce crime disorder across the Vale of Glamorgan, so that the people who work, live and visit the Vale feel safe and free from crime and free from the fear of crime as well. To engage with residents, to improve the ways in which it connects with its residents and the ways in which residents can connect with the community safety partnership and shape the work of the community safety partnership moving forward, to safeguard the most vulnerable in the community, and to work together. So really it's about that kind of commitment to improve the ways in which we share resources and we share information safely and appropriately to create effective interventions within the remit of community safety. The partnership's focus areas, and these are largely set by legislation and by policy area, are for the partnership to work on ASB, violence against women, domestic and sexual violence, substance misuse, the counter-terrorism agenda, which is set by the contest strategy, substance misuse, I think I just said, and community engagement. A couple of additional focus areas which are incorporated into this strategy are based on new legislation. We'll see the community safety partnership also work on the serious duty, which is a new duty and places a requirement on community safety partnerships to work together to identify and respond to serious violence within the local area. And that has already seen the responsible authorities work to create a needs assessment to address crime and to address serious violence across the Vale. And it will also see the incorporation of a focus on the contest agenda, on to respond to the new draft legislation, Martin's Law, which will require partners to deliver or improve their protective response and their preparatory response to the threat of terrorism and extremism in public spaces. So the some of the kind of other specific outputs that the community safety will be looking to achieve, these have been based on partnership, consultation, and kind of the continuation of the ways in which actions are set. And we'll be looking at reviewing policies and procedures and governance arrangements and creating frameworks for young people to address the issues of young people and ASB across the Vale. So the draft strategy has undergone some significant stakeholder, partner and public consultation. Following the collaborative development of the strategy, it was circulated to all of the partners of the Safer Vale partnership. Amendments were incorporated and strategy underwent a number of changes to reflect those. It was then circulated to wider stakeholders, where it was also presented to neighbourhood and community groups, notably Neighbourhood Watch and through the Community Cohesion Group. It was presented to the Public Service Board and then went for a 4-week public consultation period, which ended in August of 2023. And this final strategy document was then presented back to the Safer Vale Partnership Board. So in terms of the ways in which the Community Safety Partnership implement the strategy and then create, as I said, every year a yearly strategic assessment will be undertaken, and that strategic assessment will make sure that the data present an evidence base for the ways in which the Community Safety Partnership will create its delivery plan, and that delivery plan will be created and actioned, what will be taken forward by an operational group. The previous strategy was supported by an operational group that was a static group that took forward the delivery of the strategy. That's currently in review at the moment, where the partnership have agreed, the strategic board have agreed, that a more transparent, more effective way to take forward the work of the partnership will be through a forum approach. And that forum will include an appropriate group, task and finish group, an appropriate group who will look at the strategic assessment. From the strategic assessment, create the appropriate delivery points, delivery action points, and that delivery action point will be scrutinised and will be brought back to the Safer Vale Strategic Board at their quarterly meeting for scrutiny and for governance and accountability. The Community Safety Partnership is a standing agenda item on the Public Service Board, so all the performance monitoring or performance reports are brought to the Public Service Board at each of their meetings as well. So I think that provides a slight an oversight anyway to the strategy, to the cabinet report, and answers some of the questions that were raised. But I think I'll hand back to you, Chair, for more comments.
Thank you, Benny. Does any committee member wish to speak? Any questions? Councillor Lovelock-Edwards.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Benny. And I just want to, just to validate the concerns that as Councillor Johnson put forward. Scrutiny is a key element of what we do, and I don't think anyone here today is in opposition to wanting to undertake that role. But Ben, you've just confirmed one of the key questions I had around the strategic assessment that will guide the annual delivery plan. And the only thing I would say is about, as this has been called in to this committee, is there any capacity, and I'll nominate myself and chair on this, in perhaps having a meeting with yourself and Miles to consider how we move forward in terms of when we can expect to receive reports, because the strategic assessment and the annual delivery plan just say that, which is on an annual basis. And I know that the annual delivery plan will always look backwards retrospectively at the previous year's performance. So is there any way to alleviate Councillor Johnson's concerns around how critical this report is to our committee as well as to other scrutinies, that there's a mechanism for perhaps the chair and I to sit down with yourself and Miles as the overarching officer and have a discussion about sort of engagement and communication and participation, and so that we can report back to this scrutiny committee at the next meeting if possible.
Benny, were you wanting to come in on that?
Yeah, absolutely. We would definitely welcome the opportunity to sit down and go through all of those issues to look at alleviating any concerns. Mike has his hand up. I don't know if Mike wants to add more to what I am saying.
Yep, Mike, if you want to come in.
It was to address specifically the issue that's just been raised by Councillor Lovelock-Edwards, but also the points that Councillor Johnson raised at the outset. There is a convoluted process in terms of where the Safer Vale partnership and where Safer Vale aligns itself, and I know this is going to sound perhaps somewhat staged, but in fact there was due to be a meeting today with Helen Moses and Helen's team looking specifically at this issue around governance. I think we recognise that the linkage in with the PSB is a natural link. The Public Service Board is a natural linkage because the partners of the Public Service Board are also represented as partners of the Safer Vale Partnership. However, as members on this committee will know, we bring updates and information reports to this committee on a very regular basis in relation to community safety activity and the activity of Safer Vale. So in terms of the request to discuss potential future governance and line of sight of the information strategy, the monitoring, the performance information, I can commit with Miles to meet with Helen for that discussion and to look at how we can ensure that the people who need to see the strategy and are involved in the scrutiny of the work of the group, how we can ensure that that happens more effectively, because we do recognise, as I say, and I think Councillor Johnson alluded to the fact that corporate resources effectively scrutinise the reports that are going to the PSB. I mean, so it was already, I think, to a certain extent in hand. At the outset, I would apologise. I mean, in hindsight, it made sense for it to come to this committee as well. And that's probably my fault, not on the part of the staff group who have prepared the strategic report. So there is a commitment that we will look at that and try and simplify and ensure that members do have the necessary oversight that the Councillor Johnson has raised.
Thank you, Mike. Do we have anybody else wishing to speak on this item? Councillor Johnson?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. If there's nobody else speaking, then I'll happily wrap up and thank both Benny and Mike for their commitments to providing a mechanism for scrutiny and oversight by the Homes and Safe Communities Committee. As Mike said, it is it's a slightly convoluted process, and I perhaps Helen Moses has been from the Public Services Board, and the governance team has been contacting you because this was raised as an issue in Corporate Performance and Resources last month about how these things are going to be done. So if there's agreements can be made and the committee are happy with a process for for scrutiny and oversight, then I'm happy with that. I'm assuming that obviously an annual report will come here at least annually, and other information as required. I think my one remaining concern is while recognising the issues raised by Benny that the idea of COVID has knocked people's ideas of long-term strategies into the side. Also, I think we do both need to we also need to recognise that there is a need for multi-year strategies and to see where how progress takes place and what we want to end up with, rather than simply a purely dynamic document that runs from year to year. And I recognise the challenges of annual funding, and I recognise the challenges of that these are areas which are heavily influenced by external factors. But it also, I think, it would be useful to consider that sort of 1 year annual plans can lead to short-term thinking if they're not part of something wider. And I'm not sure there's really an outcome that's clear from the document that's in front of us tonight. But thank you very much for the commitment, and I'm sure committee will look forward to scrutinising it when it comes back here in its future guises. Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd.
Thank you, Ian. So the recommendation for this is for the committee to consider and scrutinise the final draft of the strategy in order to satisfy themselves this strategy is appropriate and has adequate delivery and scrutiny arrangements. Are we happy to move in note?
Very happy to.
Just to check, Chair, in terms of the suggestion around governance arrangements, etc., do you want to put any comments in? You're just satisfied now that that is in train with Mike and obviously Helen Moses?
I think, yes, perhaps we should add a comment regarding that, yes.
Yeah, we put that as a recommendation then. In terms of that, Chair, are we happy for that to then go to Mike and Helen to consider, or are we referring back to Cabinet at all? Or are we happy operationally?
I'm happy for it to go back to Mike and Helen, but Councillor Lovelock-Edwards wants to come in, so I'll get her opinion as well.
No, Chair, I was just going to echo that and say if we could refer it back to Mike, and if we could get an update on sort of how that governance going forward will take shape and how it will impact on us as a scrutiny committee would be really useful too. Thank you.
Okay. Did you get that, Mark? I think so. Okay, thank you. Okay, I think that will bring us to the end of the meeting then. Thank you very much for your time tonight and for all the speakers' time as well. It is much appreciated.
Sorry, Chair, just to check on that final recommendation, are you, yourself and committee happy with that now to go forward? Just to make sure we've got that for public record.
Councillor Hennessy?
Very happy for it to go forward.
Yeah. Okay, so the next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, the 7th of February. So I will bid you all a good night. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you for your time tonight.